Hey guys, I'm Ted, here to give you another fast fact, and for today's fast fact, we will talk about the early women's rights movement of the 19th century, of the 1800s. So in the post-Jacksonian United States, there were two social movements that really just began to fundamentally alter, that dared to fundamentally alter the most basic relationships in the nation, those between blacks and whites and men and women. From the beginning of the United States' history, males have been charged with being the leaders and providers. Women were regulated to a subordinate role, mainly providing care to small children, feminine roles in agriculture, spinning, sewing, butter making, soap and candle production. The ideas of the revolution, espousing natural rights inherent to all human beings, moved the New Jersey legislature to grant voting rights to all the state's inhabitants, including free persons of color and women and white women. Supplementing this post-revolutionary gain in political rights came social rights. The definition of the relationship between husband and wife evolved to meet the changes of the time. Marriage was now a union of equals. There was a union of equals in the shared private realm of the family. Women were free to voice their opinions as it related to the household. Husbands were expected to take these opinions into considerations, even though there were no standing laws that stipulated that they had to. Now, the rise of industrialization in the Republic meant that male heads of household were leaving the old agrarian world behind and joining the new urban-based capitalist society, leaving women alone in the homes. The nature of labor in the factories opened unique opportunities to women. The factories and mills, remember, they did not use workers, but rather operatives. Women could do the same industrial jobs as men, and they could be paid less to do it. The Lowell mills, as you will recall, the Lowell mills were the best example of this. Had this was going on, the state legislatures began to formulate and then institute public school systems that turned over the roles of educating children to trained educators. This was a lot to handle at the time and sparked unrest. The domestic tasks that once constituted women's work were being taken over by industrialization and the state. Marriage soon came to be defined as consumption, not contributing equally to the family's resources and success. As the previous generation faded away, and subsequent generations were exposed to this idea of marriage and this sort of social social construct, it fundamentally altered the relationships between men and women, particularly white men and white women, and also free persons of color in the North. The avenue through which women sought to combat this was political activism. And in 1848, 200 women met at the Seneca Falls Convention to air their grievances. The convention had been organized by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. And the women there adopted the Declaration of Sentiments. It was really an echoing of the French Revolution, in which you had the Declarations of Man, and French women during the Revolution responded by drafting and publishing the rights of women. But they adopted the Declaration of Sentiments, which stated that the history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man towards women, having the direct objection of the establishment of a direct tyranny over her. They concluded the convention by demanding for the restoration of female suffrage, which was removed in 1807 during Jefferson's presidency as part of his revolution of 1800. In 1850, a National Women's Rights Convention was organized And at this convention, the delegates adopted yet another resolution that stated no portion of the species is to decide on what is the proper sphere for another species. That the only sphere for human beings is the highest and largest that they are able to obtain. The great fear among many was that the reformers were detrimental to the republic. They most often reached their goals that they most often reached for goals that really were not attainable. They really failed to gain any sort of lasting measure. This was a time in which scientific racism was booming, and along with scientific racism came this sort of sexist racism, in which just as nobody was equal to the white man, woman was also not equal to man. They sort of hit the same stumbling blocks that the abolitionists hit, in which they raised the social temperature but really had little effect on their target audience. And there you guys have it. That is the fast fact for the women's rights movement. I hope you guys found it insightful, maybe a little entertaining and enjoyable. As always, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time for another fast fact.